This NASCAR Charlotte Spring 2024 DFS Picks edition of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 100 times your entry with the Underdog Fantasy Pick'em. Sign up with our promo code RACESGPN to claim your special pick and first deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code RACESGPN. We are also brought to you by the Mega Memorial Merch Sale. 15% off of everything in the SGPN merch store using the promo code SGPN May.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you ask me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
Cheers, everyone. We have made it to Friday, the end of what has probably been the longest week of Cody and my entire life. We are breaking down the massive week that is racing here on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez. Like I said, the last episode of the week in which we crammed everything we could into every minute you ever had in your week. But thanks for hanging with us, Cody. How you feeling now that this week is over?
We've made it here Friday. This feels like the 13th Friday we've had in a row, but here we are. We've made it finally, Rod. It's been a fun week, though. Super, super excited now because it starts today, right? Truck night in America, baby. Taking the track this evening in Charlotte, and then we got a full freaking weekend. 5 races. We're betting on all of them. We're playing fantasy in all of them. Going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about a couple of different ones and highlight a couple of different drivers. Try to pick some different guys for the DFS portion that we haven't talked about this week that need to be mentioned for the DFS stuff. So looking forward to that, and just glad we made it here finally.
You know, I'm glad that we've decided to do that because I think I don't know that we actually made that decision consciously, but I feel like we just sort of said, listen, for these DFS episodes, let's try to not talk about the same drivers over and over and over again. It's hard not to sometimes, obviously, when the chalk is the chalk, but
well, it's like, it's like if we're going to give out one Truck Series guy, like Corey Heim, like, okay, yes, we know he's probably going to dominate the race and win, but let's highlight somebody else, right? That is going to make a big difference because everybody's going to play Corey Heim and everybody has to play Corey Heim because Corey Heim is going to pan out and he's going to help your lineup, but he's not going to be the guy that makes the difference. You're going to need him, yes, but let's look, dig deeper and find somebody else. So I do like that we've kind of, it wasn't really we didn't really talk about it much. We just kind of did it, and here we are. So I love it.
So you mean after 421 episodes, we're coming up with new ways to cover the same sport over and over again? It's funny too, because as the concept of the show was taking place and we went from a week, just one a week, to a couple a week, to now every day. I found myself thinking, especially at the end of season 2, I was like, how can this be sustainable? How can we talk about the same 36 guys over and over and over again? And sometimes not even the same 36, obviously, right? It's the same 15 to 20. How do we make that interesting? And I got to tell you, man, at the end of this week, having talked about as many drivers as we've talked about, well, first and foremost, Cody, you crush it every single time. So I'm glad that I have a co-host like you to share this with. But at the same time, it's like the fact that people are still coming around to listen proves that we somehow make it interesting. And I think that's a credit to all of them out there that listen and to you also to keep it fresh.
I mean, the track record speaks for itself, right? If you're making money on it, then don't quit what's not broken. Sometimes you do have to keep talking about Corey Heim every week because, well, look what Corey Heim does, right? But I think we do a good job of mixing in. A lot of times there is some of the same stuff and the same drivers, but we change it up enough and mix in other stuff and find different angles. And things are constantly changing, and that's something that's good about it, right? Is we'll fade a guy hardcore for an entire season, Chase Briscoe. And guess what? We're betting on him this week, and we bet on him a couple times this season, and he's paid off for us. And Noah Gragson was completely irrelevant last year. Well, this season we've bet on the guy, we've cashed more bets on him than probably any other driver in the field. So things are constantly changing, and it is kept a little mixed up, which I do like.
Yeah, too, and also I think the simple fact that we talk about every single thing that's got wheels that we can think about makes it happen too. Plus, Cody, like we said in the beginning, it's the biggest week in racing: Indy 500, Monaco Grand Prix, Coke 600. You guessed it. We have episodes out for every single one of those races, not to mention we've already talked about trucks. We've already talked about Xfinity. Now we're talking DFS. We've had you covered from the drop of the practice flags all the way to the checker flag. We have covered it all, and we're going to continue to do it all season long. But make sure you are joining us now, and make sure you join us to get in on the contest that we're offering. A Kyle Larson diecast. As you know, he's pulling the double, right? He's driving the Indy 500 and he's driving the Coke 600, 1,100 miles for Kyle Larson. You can have the diecast of both of those cars, the Indy car and the Arrow McLaren car, and of course the Hendrick Motorsports number 5 car right there. And best of all, it's signed. You want to get in on this contest? Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/race to register. And of course, follow us and the F1 Gambling Podcast. Register or subscribe to it on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube as well. All you got to do, pick the winner of the Indy 500, the Coke 600, and the Monaco GP. We're taking out Max Verstappen. Just pick the winner without Max, and you can be registered to win that beautiful, beautiful diecast. Well, I should say diecasts. But those are awesome. Sportsgamblingpodcast.com/race. Get in on that now. Plus, we are running a mega Memorial Day merch sale. 15% off of everything in the merch store. You got to use the promo code SGPNMay to get your hands on all of that beautiful stuff. You see those hats up there, see that coffee mug up there, you see that hoodie up there. All that stuff is up for grabs. All that Racing Gambling Podcast stuff is available on the merch store. So use that promo code SGPNMay to get your hands on some of that beautiful racing podcast stuff.
That's a nice graphic, Rod. I liked it.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks. I know okay, so if you're not watching YouTube, sometimes we get the graphics from HQ. Other times we don't get one. And so I have learned what most 5th graders know now, and that's how to use Canva. And I've put that knowledge to good use and started making graphics myself. So look, if you ever need a graphic, you could probably find somebody better, but
You make that joke, but my daughter just got done with 4th grade, and when she learned that we were using Canva to create our graphics, she was just like, "Oh my God, we use Canva! Did you know you could do this?" She's over here teaching me stuff about it, Rod. So it's so easy a 4th grader can use it.
Hey, my daughters both have been like, "Okay, Dad, did you know that you can?" I made a video in Canva. I was doing all, and I was like, she goes, "No, do this," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm learning new stuff every single day.
Love it. It's great.
Speaking of learning new stuff, I think it's time to learn stuff about the DFS and the underdog fantasy. As this episode implies, we are talking all 3 series for DFS. I mean, let's be a little bit behind the curtain here. There is not much underdog for us to cover right now as it stands when we're taping this. Obviously, we're not live, which you guys know by now means that we have taped it. But for those of you listening on the traditional podcast, you don't necessarily know because you're not there. But we're taping this a little bit early, which means there's no underdog for trucks and or Xfinity yet.
But Rod, I have good news for you.
Yes.
At the time we're recording this, those are not available. Once they are available, I'm going to have an article out, sportsgamblingpodcast.com. It'll at least have Xfinity Series picks on it. I'm hoping that Xfinity and Truck both come out together. If so, it'll be a combo article with plays for both of them. So make sure you're staying tuned to my X at @Zeeb. I'll share the article there. I'll drop it in Discord as well, like I always do. Or just check out the website, and it will be up there. So as you're listening to this on Friday morning, hopefully, that article should be out by now over on sportsgamblingpodcast.com. So you get Xfinity plays for sure. Hopefully Xfinity and trucks and Rod F1 underdog too. I don't know. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on F1's on their release schedule for underdog, because I feel like they kind of wait until after a lot of things are set. So it might be quick turnaround, but it'll be out by Saturday at some point, I guess. So before the Grand Prix, so you'll get a chance to look at that and get all my picks for that also.
Well, and so for those of you guys who are in the Discord, sg.pn/Discord, and then of course search for the NASCAR channel, bug me on Friday. I'm working on Friday, but I should be able to sneak away for a little bit to record some of my favorite picks for underdog to put them on the YouTube channel. So I expect you guys to keep me honest and say, hey, Rod, any word on those underdog picks yet? And I will feel enough pressure from you guys to do the right thing and give you guys my underdog picks for the slate. So
peer pressure always works, Rod. All right, you ready to get into some we're going to start with the DFS side of things, of course. Give a truck driver we like. Are you ready, Rod?
Yep. So what the whole thing is, we're giving you a building block. We used to do obviously high, mid, and low price drivers, but when we were covering all three at once, we'll give you our famous building blocks and you can choose from there. Obviously DFS has everything up right now for the 2024 North Carolina Education Lottery 200, 134 laps around this 1.5 mile paved track for 201 miles in this race. So lap leaders could come into play, but I think for truck, 134 laps, it'll space itself around evenly. And so we're looking for some good drivers that are going to be front. A lot of cup drivers in here, as we talked about too, in the cup episode. They're no.
That's Xfinity.
Long week, but
that's
Cody,
next, Rod.
save us, and and take us to your first building block.
All right, Rod. Yeah, I'm going to start my lineup. Every one of my lineups, I'm going to start with Corey Heim. So go ahead and play him, and it's your turn. Oh, just kidding. No, Corey Heim, the obvious one. Obviously, I joked about that earlier. You should play him. But guy that I'm targeting this week, Rod, Caden Honeycutt, $6,700. They haven't quite learned. He's only a part-time guy, Rod. He's only showing up for some of these races. Doesn't matter, because when he's showing up, he's showing up. This Nice 45 truck has not been bad this season. Ross Chastain just won with it at Darlington, of course. We all know about that. But Caden Honeycutt was in this at Kansas, Rod. Kansas is probably one of the most comparable tracks to Charlotte. 62.9. Is that nice? I guess, sort of. If you take the 2 out of there. I don't know. Anyways, he was at $6,500. 62.9 points he scored for you. Started in 23rd. Finished in 4th place, Rod. This wasn't a crazy. I think there was some strategy to get him up there, but he finished 4th pretty legitimately. Had 8 fastest laps, led 1 lap in there as well. But obviously, massive place differential plus finishing position, 62.9 points for you. So that's a very, very strong day for Caden Honeycutt. He also made an appearance at Martinsville earlier this season, where he started 17th, finished 9th, 43 points. Not super comparable here, but the fact is, starts kind of mid-pack, finishes in the top 10. You're going to take that every single time. He was at Bristol, started 12th there, finished in 8th place, 29.7. That's even not a bad day as well. He had 57.9 also when he was at, was that Atlanta? Yes, Atlanta, where he finished in 8th place there, or 6th place rather. So he's been having, his 4 starts, they've been limited, but he's taken full advantage. 4th at Kansas, 9th, 12th, and 6th place finish. So been strong season so far for him. Only 6,700, Rod. Look, you're going to have to play Corey Heim. You're probably going to have to play Christian Eckes. Those are $11,000, $10,800 at the top of the board. You're going to need to save some money. Caden Honeycutt, honestly, might be the guy that I start building my lineups with, because of the upside he's got and what he's done so far this season, and being at this extremely cheap price.
Yeah, we took a swing on him a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember
Kansas.
Exactly which race it was. Yeah, it was Kansas. Yeah,
it was Kansas. I think I gave him out there, and yeah, he had a massive day for us, scoring 62 points at $6,500. That's some good ROI when it comes to DFS there.
Yeah, again, it's that 45 truck too. It's good equipment. He knows how to drive it well, and he's been able to give you good days with it. And for DFS, place differential, you're looking for if he starts in the back, hopefully that's where you kind of want him to start, because he's got the ability and the truck to sort of drive up to the front. And even if he kind of stays where he's at, if he's in the front, then that's a good day for him too at that price. So absolutely love it, Cody. I do. I will give you my building block driver, but we have to first tell you about our friends, as we already have an Underdog Fantasy. The NBA playoffs are here. Our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, they want to make it a lot more interesting, because Underdog, let's face it, it's the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing their pick'em game is as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so much more. And of course, in the world of racing, as you know, better than or worse than the projected finishing position of your favorite driver. You can make entries in just all basketball if you want, or you can mix and match across all of your other favorite sports like racing, like hockey, like baseball, like soccer even, I guess, if that's your thing. PGA tours going on now, so you can do that too. Plus, you can actually win up to 100 times your money. It's a ton of fun. Underdog's available all over the map, and I'll tell you more later. But new customers get a pick'em special in the lobby when you sign up. So make sure you go take advantage of that. Underdog's also going to be running a ton of different promos like bonus cash airdrops. You got specials, giveaways, and more throughout the NBA playoffs. So make sure to follow at Underdog Picks on Twitter to keep an eye out. Underdog's available in 30 and more states, including California, Texas, and the great country of Canada. Plus, they also just launched Champions, their player versus player format in Florida. Sign up today with our promo code RACESGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code RACESGPN. My building block driver begins with one Dean Thompson, just $100 more than your Caden Honeycutt. Look, this is one where it's not going to be, it's only going to be a GPP play at best. I mean, this is not a cash lineup guy. He's not necessarily the most stable of drivers. 1 week, he'll give you 17 points. The next week, he'll give you -1. The next week before that, he'll give you 51 and 29 and -17 again, 43. His shot group looks like mine after a very long day on the range, where the sweat's been in my eyes all day, and I'm literally just trying to get off because I know I'm not going to qualify that day, and I just want to go home and cry about it. So that is what Dean Thompson's shot group looks like. But he isn't a Tricon truck. We talked so much about that number one truck and all the things that it's done with the various drivers that it's done. Even last week, right? Brendan Queen drove that one truck into a top 5 finish. Dean Thompson runs in the top 10, and you see him running around the top 5 sometimes too, right? He's got that ability. He had an 8th place finish at the Heart of America, and in Kansas, like an 8th place finish in Kansas, right? That was a hell of a day for him in fantasy. He got you 51 points that day. That is his ceiling, right? Obviously, we know his floor is -17. Which is not good. His floor is a 30th place finish in Las Vegas. But like I said, that 8th place at Kansas is kind of right where you want him. $6,800 is, not too bad. But also on top of that, Dean Thompson does have a 3rd place finish here from last year. He started 7th place and finished 3rd on this track just as recently as last year. Again, that is where I don't know if he's going to get 3rd place this year, but I would take a nice solid top 10 finish out of him, especially if he starts somewhere in the 24th or 25th position like he did. His average starting position is 18th. So if you get him there and he gives you a top 7 finish, that's a pretty good day for fantasy, especially at a $6,800 price tag. So, I mean, again, straight up GPP play. This is not something you want to go heavy on Dean Thompson with, but if you decide you want to take a swing at somebody that not a lot of people are going to take a swing at, I think Dean Thompson is a solid pick at $6,800.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought him up, Rod. I think it's important to talk about him because he does have that big upside. He kind of, to a much lesser degree, I'm not comparing these guys because Kruth is a lot more talented, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of Roger Kruth from last season, which is why we hit him at such a big number at Las Vegas earlier this year, because you saw the speed and he was always up there, and then Roger Kruth wrecks, and and Dean Thompson fucking wrecks a lot, Rod. But before he wrecks, he's always got the speed. He always looks fast, and he runs good. Every once in a while, like last year in this race, he puts it together, and it does seem like 1.5 miles are his thing. I think there's a little more space to move around and less things to hit. So maybe that helps things. But I think it is a good week to play him. He's a really hard guy to trust in cash games because that floor, there is no floor, Rod. It's an empty hole. It's a bottomless pit. But the ceiling is there, and he's got that upside as well.
That floor is a trap door that leads straight into all the spikes and fire. Yeah, you're like, oh, dude.
And it'll take out all your other DFS plays on its way.
Yeah, it would not be pretty at all. So, all right. Well, then for Truck DFS, that's a wrap for that. Again, these are just building blocks, right? These are guys that we think that you should be building your DFS lineups around, whether that is a cash game or that is a GPP. We're not going to give you a full on three-course meal of truck drivers. We're going to move on now to the Xfinity race, the Bet MGM 300, depending on what book you're at, because sometimes it's a Carolina 300, but which my wife says she likes.
What's it listed at here in DraftKings as?
I think it is the Bet MGM and DraftKings, though. Maybe, I think. Because I thought.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is. So
yeah,
I was curious
if
their fantasy platform would promote it, which it is. So there you go.
I guess they figured that it's two different products, so they don't care. But we are set for 200 laps around this 1.5 mile paved track for 300 laps on the Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina. Cody, who is your first building block for the Xfinity Series?
Yeah, so we talked about it on the betting episode. A fuck ton of Cup Series guys in this race, Rod. It's going to make it interesting to build because there's a lot of different ways to go here. You got Kyle Busch at the top at 12,000, Gibbs at 11.5, Elliott at 11, Allgaier at 10.5, Custer, Hill, Chandler Smith at 9,800. I definitely thought about bringing him up, Rod. So honorable mention there. Sam Mayer at 9,300, same thing. There's kind of this group of guys right here that are regulars that show up and are pretty good. Maybe you mix them in with one of these Cup guys that you think is the guy, maybe two of them if you get there. But a guy that I want to highlight, Rod, $9,500 kind of tucked right in here, Noah Gragson. I wanted to bring him up because we didn't get an opportunity to bring him up on the betting episode because it was just, there was nothing attractive enough about Noah Gragson as far as in the betting market. But, Rod, Noah Gragson, and again, this should be, so it's some weird team. I don't even have the team in front of me, but it's a random team that he's racing for. But this should be an SHR prepared car. 2 years ago, Rod, 2022 was the last time that he ran full-time in the Xfinity Series. I would like to just read you Noah Gragson's finishes from, let's see, we're going to start at Michigan in August, beginning of August 6th. Here's how he finished. 3rd, 4th, 1st, 22nd at Daytona. Okay. 1st, 10th, Talladega. The only two bad finishes are at Speedways here. 3rd, 2nd, 1st, 4th, 2nd. Noah Gragson in the Xfinity Series, absolutely fucking dominant in his last season there. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins. 1, 2. How many fucking seconds? He had 5 second place finishes. Like, just his entire season, absolutely great. I mean, you go to Miami, 1.5 miles, win. Las Vegas, 1.5 miles, second place. Texas, 1.5 miles, win. Kansas, 1.5 miles, win. Darlington, intermediate track, win. Michigan, 2 mile intermediate track, 3rd place. Charlotte here, he was at 4th place. But to the point, Las Vegas, 2nd. Auto Club, 2nd. I mean, Jesus Christ, Noah Gragson was so fucking good in Xfinity. Now you're getting the opportunity to come back here. So a little bit hard to find a good way to bet on him, but I think as a DFS guy, because you've got Kyle Busch, you've got Ty Gibbs, you've got Chase Elliott, you've got Justin Allgaier, you got Cole Custer, you got Austin Hill, you got Chandler Smith all ahead of him, and then even Sam Mayer right behind him, Sheldon Creed and Riley Herbst. Like, there's a lot of fucking guys to pick from. He's probably going to be one of the guys that's kind of left out, and I think maybe he shouldn't be, Rod. Is he going to dominate like he did then? Maybe not, right? He was in JRM equipment, and the JRM equipment was maybe even better then than it is now, even though it's still good, obviously. But wouldn't be surprised to see Noah Gragson. We've already seen how good he's been doing in the Cup Series this season. Now he gets to step back into Xfinity, his old comfortable stomping grounds here, and have a good performance. So I expect a good DFS day from him, and I think he'll have a solid run. Again, numbers weren't quite there to even bet him top 5. Like, it just wasn't sexy enough. But a DFS day where he gets you a top 5 finish, or maybe even a top 3, and runs some fastest laps, maybe gets out front for a little bit, like he's got the ability to do, I think is a great play, especially when you're getting him at only 9,500, compared to a Kyle Busch at 12,000.
And that's the great part about this DFS episode too, in that, a lot of times when we're talking about the betting, you want him to have and hit a certain mark, right? For DFS, a 10th place finish and 11th place finish sometimes is not that big of a difference when it comes to being able to place or to win, right? I mean, as long as you build a strong enough just surrounding the one driver, a couple points between a 10th and 11th, it could mean the difference between a few dollars, maybe even a few $100s. But more often than not, if you've built a nice solid base, a guy like Noah Gragson only helps you finishing that far up in the standings.
Yeah, and like if you bet on him minus 120 for a top 5 and he finishes in 6th place, like you're super disappointed because it didn't cash. Well, if you play him in DraftKings here and he finishes 6th instead of 5th, okay, one less place differential and finishing position, but he still had a pretty good day for you and scored a lot of points, right? So, again, while a lot of things do correlate from betting to fantasy, and a lot of things do translate over and carry over, there is some things as well where it's like, yeah, I really like this guy in a fantasy sense, just hard to find the good value on him. So I think that's why it's kind of good that we are, like you said before, trying to highlight some different guys and bring them up, because even though we couldn't find a way to bet on him, I think he is a good DFS play and whatever fantasy game you're playing.
Indeed. I will give you my building block for the Xfinity race, but first let's tell you about our friends at Rhythm. If you're betting on NBA player props, you got to download Rhythm. Rhythm gives you a menu of the best player props for every single NBA playoff game, making it easy to go through and find the best props to put your money on in seconds. Rhythm's predictions are backed by over 3 years of data and a team of data scientists and quants that focus on fine-tuning our algorithm to give you the best shot at winning. Rhythm pairs its predictions with player prop graphs to help you feel even more confident in your picks, which you can make wherever you normally place your bets or DFS picks. From superstars to bench players, Rhythm finds the best player prop lines, all backed by AI data without you needing to endlessly scroll a sportsbook. Rhythm also allows you to create your own custom NBA models so you can get AI-backed money line, spread, and total picks for every playoff game. Start your free 7-day trial and win your NBA player props with Rhythm, available wherever you get your apps. I'm not overthinking this one, Cody. I wanted to try to find a more attractive, but here's the thing. You're going to have one of the bigger guys in this, right? Because the lap leaders are there. These guys have just a way to be able to lead laps, right? And Justin Allgaier's that guy, especially at this track. Justin Allgaier is the returning winner of this last season. Justin Allgaier won last week at Darlington. Justin Allgaier won at a perfect opportunity, too, going into a track where he did win last season, where he has had success in the past as well. He won last year. He finished 7th the year before that. He finished 11th. He finished 5th. He finished 2nd also. So good, solid top 10 and or top 10 adjacent finishes for Justin Allgaier. And in that 2022 race, he led 63 laps. In that 2023 race, he led 83 laps. So Justin Allgaier is going to be one of those guys that you just need to build on, because he is probably going to be there around the front. It doesn't matter which Cup Series drivers are there. He's raced against them all. I mean, he's raced against all of these guys and have beaten these guys on certain occasions.
He raced against most of them before they were Cup drivers, when they were just Xfinity guys.
He's watching them. He's watching them go to college while he's still hanging out.
It's like they grow up. He helps train them, and then they're coming back down to play with him.
They're like, oh, listen, we got much props to you, Justin Allgaier, for helping us get where we're at. But no, but look, for Justin, it's even he's the 3rd highest in fantasy points per race this season. He's averaging 42.1 fantasy points per race. There's a consistency there, right? There's the ability for him to score these points. Now I understand that there are times in which Justin Allgaier will be leading in the race, lead so many laps of that race, and then blow a tire and screw you in the end. However, there are days like last week where he will get you 105 points, lead 119 laps. Or there's a couple of weeks ago at the Andy's Frozen Custard race there where he was in third place at Texas, led 117 laps, started sixth, finished third, got you 93 points, 93 points on that day as well. Look I'm telling you that this play comes with a certain level of risk that, he could end up not finishing well and crashing out of a race and, hurting you like you did in Phoenix. But I think the chances are greater that he is going to put together a good, solid race, especially on this track, because like Cody said, this track in particular, it's kind of expansive and there's a lot of ways that you can run this track. This is not one where you're going to get yourself in too much trouble, and you can keep yourself clean. So Justin Allgaier can do that. He's done that in this series for many, 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 many years now. And I think he can do it again on this particular race. And I think even at $10,500, you can't not have him in at least one of your lineups going forward.
Yeah, I like it, Rod. I think he is a good play. And again, he might be a little less popular because of the fact that there is these Cup guys in here. 105 points at Darlington last time they were out. Don't forget William Byron was in that race, and yet Justin Allgaier got it done. So Byron had some issues throughout the day, but maybe these Cup guys will. I think it's going to be the Xfinity slate this week is going to be so much fun to build. And again, we'll have to see how qualifying goes, but like so many different ways you can go as far as mixing these guys with some Cup guys. Really, you could do an Xfinity regular thing where you get Allgaier, Mayer, Chandler Smith, and then you toss Noah Gragson in there. And then you can get two cheaper options like a Leland Honeyman and a Dean Thompson. Like that could end up being it, where you've got Noah Gragson is your one Cup guy, but it ends up being where Justin Allgaier dominates on the day and him and Gragson kind of share it back and forth, and Sam Mayer's up there, and you have the whole old JRM crew out there, whatever the deal is. There's a lot of fun different ways to build in Xfinity this week. So I'm looking forward to building some Xfinity lineups on Saturday.
Yeah, again, it's going to be a lot all over the place. So if you're in a tournament, if you're in some sort of cash game, this is going to be a week where you're going to see a ton of different builds. So it's definitely going to be a lot of fun, just like Cody said. All right, let us turn our attention to the Cup Series, where we'll give you our Cup Series building blocks. 400 laps in this Coca-Cola 600-mile race around this 1.5 mile paved track, 600 miles. Whew, there's going to be some tired folks. Kyle Larson's going to be one of them for sure, as he's going to have driven Indianapolis. He might have driven Monaco before that. We don't know. No one's telling us that yet, but yeah, this is going to be crazy, Cody. And honestly, the building blocks for this are just going to come down to who can last 600 miles.
Yeah, well, 400 laps, Rod. That's a lot of laps led. That's a lot of fast laps. So make sure you pick the guy who leads 385. Is that how many Martin Truex? I think Martin Truex 1 year in the Coke 600 led 385. You imagine his fucking DraftKings that day, Rod? Holy shit, that's a score. You better hope you had him that day. But it is going to be important, right? We're going to get a mixture of lap leaders. I think that's obviously an outlier example. It's possible, sure, but it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this lays out, and you're going to want to get guys that lead laps for sure. So, but Rod, the guy that I am going to target, I'm going to go down to Chris Buescher at $8,500, and here is why. Because not only do I think Chris Buescher, with this extra mileage, getting to 600 miles, I think he's going to be patient. I think he's going to be smart. I think he's going to be there at the end. But, Rod, he gives the upside that he has brought over the last couple of weeks. Ford obviously found something starting back at Kansas. Chris Buescher showed up in that race, Rod, and he was good that day. Kind of battling for the lead throughout the day. He led 54 laps. So if he can lead 54 laps in that 400-mile race, maybe he's leading 75, 80, 100 laps here. Maybe he's leading even more if he gets out front and has a solid day. He scored 70.5 points that day. Darlington a couple of weeks ago ends up at minus 4.4. But, Rod, 21 laps led, 12 fastest laps. Of course, he was in the lead when him and Tyler Reddick got together and ruined their day and ruined what his score was. But, the last two regular season races we've had, throwing the All-Star race out of there because it's completely different, is Darlington, which is an intermediate, right? A little bit shorter, but still an intermediate, and Kansas, which is comparable to Charlotte a lot. And Chris Buescher's been one of the better cars in both of those races, losing by literally the closest margin ever in NASCAR history, and then leading with, there was like 20 laps to go or something when him and Reddick got together. It was not very much, with a chance to win again. Now you're bringing him back to another intermediate. We've seen how streaky Chris Buescher can be when he won all those races last season. They all came in a very close proximity. You'd think of tracks like Michigan, where he was super fast, another comparable track to this. RFK's figured something out. Ford has figured something out as far as speed goes. And Chris Buescher at only 8,500, Rod, when, Kyle Larson's at the top of the board at 11,000. Now, are you going to need a Larson or a Hamlin or a Byron or a Blaney or one of these guys up to the top? Yeah, you're going to need one and maybe two of those guys. But Buescher gives you a lot of upside for a guy that's only at $8,500 and really should be able to score you a lot of points. And he's got that ability to lead all those laps like he did at Kansas and lead laps like he did at Darlington. If he can get out front of this thing for a little while, we could see him rack up those laps, let him fastest laps pretty quick.
RFK is one of the ones that make you just say, yeah, man, they're so good. And they make you look right. And then they make you look wrong. Like but I mean, they've been doing it. They've been making you look right more often than they haven't lately. So I'm definitely with you on riding the wave for Chris Buescher. I don't know if I found a way to work him in the betting card, but I feel like I wanted to. I feel like there was a way that I wanted to get in on him. But
I know I had him as one of my outrights at 14-1, Rod, because I do really think he's got a good opportunity to win this race.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you on the DFS, especially only $8,500. Like that is a little bit disrespectful for a guy like Chris Buescher in the equipment that he's in. All right. I did not expect myself to wake up and choose violence on this particular day. However, here I am, and hang with me on this one. All right. Because I'm going to offer up Shane Van Gisbergen. Shout out to you, Dale Jr. For $5,500 for look, I guess I'm going straight GPP on these picks, on these building blocks. So this is one that I don't think anybody is going to want to be on, because Shane Van Gisbergen has only had 4 Cup Series races in his entire career, right? And one of them obviously was the Chicago win. The other one was the Indy GP, where he finished in 10th. And then, of course, in 2024, he's only been in, of course, Austin and Talladega. So not a mile and a half yet, not a 600-mile race, but boy, he is going to get tested and tested big. But what we've seen from Shane Van Gisbergen, especially in the Xfinity Series, he has been catching on quickly, right? Las Vegas was his first mile and a half ever in the NASCAR world, right? Engine problems kicked him out of that one. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see everything, but he turned around the next week, and put a 6th place on the board in Phoenix after starting 23rd, drove his way out there and had a good day there. All in all, he's had 28.6 points per race. That's his average in the Xfinity Series. Like I said, that day he got you 55 points in where I just told you he was at in Phoenix. For the love of God, I wish they would give me the actual race.
Yeah, they really need to add that in DraftKings, because it makes it difficult.
Yeah. But again, for $5,500, right? If he can get you somewhere in the vicinity of 20 to 30 points, you are going to absolutely love that. Because for Shane, the 16 car, believe it or not, has not lost you fantasy points pretty much all season. I mean, it's been rough in a couple of spots, but at Daytona, AJ Allmendinger finished 6th after starting 28th. It's a hell of a day there, right? Josh Williams in the 16, he kind of screwed you on that one. He started 30th, finished 37th, but that's Josh Williams. Derek Kraus started 33rd in Las Vegas, finished 28th, right? And then he actually led 2 laps in that race. That was one where the strategy got him up there, and he was leading, praying for another caution, but didn't get it. Phoenix, he crashed out. Derek Kraus did. But then you turn around and you look at places like Texas, where Ty Dillon started 36th and finished 16th in that race. And then, of course, in Darlington last week, Derek Kraus started 32nd, finished 29th. Kraus again starting 38th at Kansas, finishing 31st. I mean, it's not the sexiest of DFS days or of like overall days in general, but for DFS purposes at $5,500, That's what you're wanting out of this guy. Again, Derek Kraus led 6 laps in Kansas. Shane Van Gisbergen led 3 laps at Talladega. So strategy could come into play. Shane leads a little bit of this race through strategy, and you're looking at a pretty good day for $5,500 out of Shane Van Gisbergen, who, by the way, has taken to the mile and a half now like a duck on water lately. So he's not going to be competing for a top 25 or top 20, but he should. Well, maybe could. I don't know. Maybe if he does, then that's even better for you. So yeah, give me Shane Van Gisbergen $5,500.
I love this play, Rod. As you know, huge SVG fan over here. I couldn't even say it with a straight face. Actually, I am a fan, but I know some of you like to give me shit for it. So I do really like this play a lot, though. I mentioned on the betting episode, there is going to be a couple, probably at least one, maybe even 3 big upset top 10 guys. SVG has that upside, Rod. This is the type of race with these extra 200 or 100 miles, however you want to look at it, that leans in towards the veterans, right? We've only got 4 Cup Series starts. Is he a veteran, Rod? Well, not in the Cup Series, but he's a veteran race car driver. He's been doing it for a long time. He knows how to take care of his stuff. That's been the thing we've complimented him the most on in the Xfinity Series this season. Just hangs on to it. He's still learning all these places. He hasn't been to most of them, but he gets through the race. He's clean. He completes all the laps, and he's there with a solid day at the end of the day, and that's what you're looking for. He's not going to be overly aggressive in this race. He's not going to push the limits. He's not going to go too far. And when we're trying to go 600 miles or 8 billion kilometers, as he's going to view it as, I think it's close conversion. I don't have the exact conversion, but close enough.
Hey Siri, what's 600 miles in kilometers?
But this is the perfect type of race to play him in DFS. So it's going to be something different for him because I don't think he's ever run. They've got the Bathurst 1000 or whatever it is, but you split drivers in that race, so he's never even gone this far before. But if somebody can do it, he definitely is one of them. And again, as you're looking at the DFS pool, when you get towards the bottom, while I said that there's a lot of guys that I think could do well, he's about as low as I want to go. I will consider Kaz Gralla at 5,300, but I mean below him is Voldemort. Not interested. Ty Dillon, definitely not interested in that 50 car. I would not play Ty Dillon. JJ Yaley and Timmy Hill, which I'm not really interested in those guys either. So, I think SVG will be a very good way to save you some money this week and could pay off well for you.
I would hope so. Definitely for his sake and for our sake. All right, get out your pen and paper. We're going to go over the DFS plays for this weekend at Charlotte. Cody started you off with his truck building block of Caden Honeycutt at $6,700. I gave you Dean Thompson at $6,800. Cody's Xfinity building block was Noah Gragson at $9,500. Mine was Justin Allgaier at $10,500. Cody's building block for the Cup Series was Chris Buescher at $8,500. I said SVG at $5,500 would be my Cup building block. Let's move on to the underdog fantasy picks for this weekend. Of course, if you use our promo code RACESGPN, you're going to get that fun special pick and $250 deposit bonus. Woo! Got to get in there, got to do that and have some fun with it. Plenty of opportunities for you on this one. Obviously, like we said, we'll give you all Cup Series drivers, and we will put extra articles and we'll put some picks up as well for the trucks and the Xfinity throughout the course of the week. But we'll give you 3 of our favorite underdog fantasy plays. Cody, where do we begin?
Yeah, Rod, my favorite one on the board. Wrote this up in my article earlier this week as well over on sportsgamblingpodcast.com, which, by the way, has more plays than I'm giving out today. A couple guys we're not going to talk about. So if you haven't seen it, go check that out and get those extra plays as well. Alex Bowman, better than 13.5. Absolutely love this, Rod. Talked about him on the betting episode for a top 10 at plus money. Thought that was great value. Get an extra 3 spots here. Sign me up. Alex Bowman is the perfect type of driver in this type of race. Again, you look back at what he's done in the Coca-Cola 600 specifically previously. Last season, 12th place. That was with a bad back, Rod. Still better than 13.5. Before that, 10th, 5th. Had a 31st tossed in there, but he led 48 laps that day, had some speed, got caught up in a wreck. Before that, 7th, 9th, 5 of the last 6 Coca-Cola 600s, which you want to look at specifically. A lot of times we're looking at just what have they done in the next-gen car to track or something like that. But this extra mileage, getting to 600 is important. So we're going back farther with that. 5 of 6, he has been under this or better than 13.5, which is what you're looking for. Then, Rod, go back and you look at what he's done this season. 8 of 13 races, he's been inside the top 5, or not top 5. I wish it was top 5. That'd be great. Inside the top 13, which is what you're looking for here. 8th place at Darlington, recent intermediate. 7th place at Kansas, recent mile and a half. 8th place at Dover, recent intermediate. Had a 5th at Talladega in there. 37th at Texas, wrecked out earlier in the race. That's going to happen. 8th at Richmond. He's had some really good runs this season. Again, kind of slept on a little bit, kind of under the radar, because when you compare him to Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott and William Byron with all their wins, it doesn't look as good. But 13.5 is all you need. Better than that, Rod. This is easily my favorite underdog play on the board.
Yeah, well, we talked about the Hendrick cars too on the betting episode and how we think they're going to be strong on this racetrack anyways. So, I mean, Bowman, that seems like a very disrespectful number, 13.5. I get the reasoning behind it. I understand. I know what goes into it, but you know, for a guy like Alex Bowman, 13.5, just, it seems like a knock it out of the park every single week. And especially on a week like this, on a race like this, on a race weekend like this. Speaking of race weekends and guys that should do better than their finishing position, I'm going to bring up Kyle Busch. And for once on this show, I am not going to give a worse than for Kyle Busch. His number is set at 11.5. His finishing position is projected at 11.5. I'm going to take the better on this one. In fact, I know Kyle Busch has burned you more times than you're willing to admit. He's only got 5 top 10 finishes in 13 starts this season. It has been a rough go for him. 26th place at Las Vegas, 22nd at Phoenix, which I know is not a mile and a half, but still 20th at Richmond, 16th at Martinsville. But Texas, 9th place finish. Kansas, 8th place finish. The last 2 mile and a halves that we've been at, he's been able to get himself inside of the top 10. Last week at was successful. He had a 27th place finish. But you also look at the fact that he's led laps over the last few races too. He led 34 laps at Dover when he started from the pole. He led 14 laps at Kansas and had started at 5th place and finished in 8th place. Here's the thing about Kyle Busch too. And really, if you, when you look at his numbers on this one, right, he's got 35 starts, 22 top 10s. In 6 of his last 7 races, going back to his days with the 18, he has finished inside of the top 10. Many of those, in fact, all but one of those, have been a top 5 finish. He won in 2018, 3rd in 2019, 4th in 2020, 29th in 2000, that other race that was not even a full 600, but 3rd, 2nd, 6th, his last 3 finishes. And the 6th place finish was even in the 8 car. So, I mean, you can't even say that they were all in the 18. Something had to have lit a fuse under Kyle last week at the All-Star race. Something had to have made him go home and say to himself, I just let Ricky Stenhouse punk me. I've got to pick my game up. I made Ricky Stenhouse I made myself admit to Ricky Stenhouse that I sucked this year. A guy like Kyle Busch, he's too good of a driver to stay down for too long. So I think this week is a good bounce back week for him on a track that he's comfortable with, on a race that he's comfortable with, a race length that he's comfortable with. And I think a top 10 finish for him is not out of the realm of possibility. And so give me the better than 11.5 for Kyle Busch.
Are you saying that maybe Ricky Stenhouse struck a match to light this fire?
Wah, 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 wah.
Okay, that was bad. I'm sorry.
No,
It's
listen,
Friday,
I would say so. I mean, listen, for what it's worth, yes.
Yeah, no, actually, this was one that I highlighted, Rod, as wanting to take the worst then, and I could not talk myself into it. So I think that in itself is a solid case for your better than. So no argument for me there. Rod, next up for me. I'm going to go back to Chris Buescher. Again, I'm trying to talk about different guys, but he's made it to the DFS part of it. He's now in the underdog part of it, and he was on the betting part of it. I think that kind of maybe show you how I feel about Chris Buescher. 11.5 is his better than, and that's what I'm going to be on. I mean, all-star race last week, 3rd place finish for Chris Buescher there. Again, momentum, right? He's has it. Darlington, again, the finish, very much an outlier. Yes, it was 30th, would not have hit this better than, but he was in first place at the end of the race. Kansas, this close to winning, Rod. They've really shown speed since since before that at Dover. A couple of tougher races before that, but had some other good finishes and better runs earlier on in the season. And most importantly, they've really turned the corner and gotten better. And we know, Rod, and we've known this now for this past season and this season, that RFK is the best Ford team out there. Once things start clicking with them, Buescher has been within a tenth or 3 inches of being in victory lane. Brad Keselowski's now been in victory lane in the last points paying race we had. Chris Buescher's been on fire. Talk about somebody who's got a fire lit under him, losing the closest finish ever, then getting wrecked for the lead the next week. Chris Buescher wants to show up. He didn't care about the All-Star race last week, Rod, although he had a good performance. He's got this one circled. He wants to show up. I think he's going to be there at the end. Again, I gave him out as an outright in the betting episode on Tuesday because I really do like Chris Buescher this week, and I think his better than 11.5 is a good one.
I think when you run well, it breeds you running well again. And for Chris Buescher and even Brad Keselowski, for that matter, too, both of those guys, as we know, tend to run right in sync with each other if it's not within a couple of positions for either one of these RFK guys. So, I mean, if you really wanted to try to tail Keselowski on this as well, you could. But I still think Chris Buescher, he's beginning to emerge as the one at RFK. I know Brad's got other stuff to say about it. In fact, he won a race to try to do it, but you can tell that the torch is being passed in between these guys. And Brad's probably going to retire sooner rather than later. And then it'll be Chris Buescher's show and they'll find somebody else for the 6. But yeah, I do like the direction, the trajectory, as it were, that Chris Buescher is heading. So I'll take that with you as well. Better than an 11.5. Cody, I hate to besmirch the name of the Watermelon Man. However, I must take the worse than for Ross Chastain this week. It's set at 12.5, which at face value makes you go, Rod, you're kind of crazy, right? 12.5, he could definitely get to 12.5. Yeah, he can. But unfortunately, children, his average finishing position this season is 13.5. Talk about the last couple of mile and a half that we've been to. Kansas started second, led 43 laps. He ended that race in 19th. Texas started 12th, crashed out of that race. Yeah, he led 33 laps in that race too, but he finished 32nd. Las Vegas was his only really good mile and a half. He finished 4th, but he was kind of on a good run at that point. He had just finished 7th in Atlanta, 4th at Vegas, and he went on to finish 6th at Phoenix. Just been falling on hard times ever since Coda. Richmond, 3rd place start, 15th place finish. Martinsville, 12th place start, 14th place finish. Talked about Texas already. Talladega, 32nd place start, 13th place finish, but super speedway. Dover, 22nd place start, 12th place finish. And then, of course, last week at Darlington, he got 11th place finish. But I will say, this track, not kind to him at all. It doesn't matter what he's driving, whether it's the 15, the 71, or the 77, or the 42. His average finish between his 6 starts, 25.8. 24th place in the 15, 36th place in the 15, 21st place in the 77, 37th in the 42, 15 in the 1, 22 in the 1. He even led 153 laps of that 2022 race. He was crushing it. Did not finish well in that race. He finished 15th. He has a 20.2 average finish at intermediate tracks over the course of his career, and a 13.8 place average finish at intermediate tracks since February of 2021. I mean, like I said, he had 11th place at Darlington, but 19th at Kansas, 32nd at Texas, 31st at Homestead, 13th at Kansas, 22nd at Charlotte, 29th. Look, he can get you a good finish. He's Ross Chastain, right? His range of outcomes swing from winning a race to crashing out and being 30-something. But on the whole, especially on this track, his finishes have not been better than 12.5 consistently enough for me to want to take the better than on this. So give me Ross worse than 12.5 on this particular slate.
Yes, I really wanted to have this play, Rod, and you took it from me. So completely agree with you. I think it's a good point to make, too. You mentioned him leading 150 laps and then not having the results. Don't get too excited if a driver you're on leads the first 250 laps of this race, because they're going to start in the daytime. It's going to go into the nighttime. The track's going to change. A lot of things are going to happen. There's going to be attrition. People are going to fall out. Ross Chastain is too aggressive. That is a good thing for him in general for how his racing style is, and it works for him. But in a 600-mile race, Rod, where you got to be the tortoise and get to the end, he's too much of the hare. He's try and too hard, and he's going to pay for it. His results, I faded him in the betting episode in some head-to-head, I think a head-to-head, maybe two. But he's just he's too aggressive. He pushes too hard, and it's going to cost him. And then you made the case as well. The results haven't really been there lately for him on the intermediates either. So, Trackhouse, I think, has definitely kind of fallen back a little bit in the intermediate program as we've seen more of the rise of, the Hendricks and the Gibbs to the very top of things, and even the RFKs and Fords kind of picking things up as well. So, I really, really like this play.
Beautiful. I'm glad you do, because I'm playing it and you can't stop me from doing it. So,
well, I wanted to add a worse than in here, Rod, but you took both of the worse thens that I like. So I'm going to go to Bubba Wallace. Better than 14.5 is where they've got Bubba Wallace. Rod last year in the Coca-Cola 600, 4th place. Last time I checked, that is better than 14.5. 28th in 2022. So, he did get involved in a wreck in that one. But 2021, 14th place finish there. So that is also better than 14.5. So 2 of the last 3 in the Coca-Cola 600, he's got it done. And look, we've seen Bubba Wallace be really strong on 1.5 miles as of late. You go back to the fall of last season, led, over 100 laps at Texas, looked really good, ends up with a 3rd place finish. It's been well documented at Kansas. Again, a very comparable track to this, how good he's done. We've seen the Toyotas be really strong. I think Bubba Wallace is going to be strong. He's only got to finish better than 14.5, Rod. He's definitely a guy who could be in a mix for a top 5 unit at the end of the day. Top 10 for sure. Top 14, love that even more. Bubba Wallace, better than 14.5.
That's a crazy, crazy number for him. Like that finishing position is, it's definitely something he can do and then some, because obviously we know that Toyotas are running strong right now, and we know that all of them have the opportunity to lead and then to be in the top 10 and then to win races this season. So, definitely love your Bubba better than 14.5. Well, I'll turn to another Toyota driver, and I'll turn to Christopher Bell. I don't know what it is about Christopher Bell lately. Like Christopher Bell, the JGR hierarchy has completely flung itself on its access now, or it's obviously Hamlin up top, always has been, always will be. Truex and Gibbs kind of flip-flop by week to week. Truex holds the 2nd spot still by seniority and whatever. We'll see. We'll see after this week where Truex falls on the power rankings. But then obviously it's Gibbs, and then it's Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell's average finishing position this season, 17.8. In Las Vegas, he finished 33rd. In Texas, he started 3rd, finished 17th. He had a good finish in Kansas, where he started on the pole, finished 6th in that race, but he only led 5 laps. So it wasn't as if, and in fact, he had to fight his way back up to a 5th place finish, if I recall. I don't think he was staying around there the whole time. But yeah, for Christopher Bell, it's just been a very, very disappointing season overall, and it's not going to get any better, because at this track, in 5 starts, he does have 2 top 10s. However, one was a 5th place finish in 2022, and then the first one was his first start in 2020 was a 9th place finish. Since then, 21st, 24th, 24th. Like, those are 3 outside of the top 20 finishes for Christopher Bell. And it doesn't matter if he leads laps in this race. Just like Cody said, don't get all excited if he leads laps, because he led 48 laps last season, didn't get it done. His average finishing position at intermediate tracks over the course of the last few years, since February of 2021, 14.9. Not better than 11.5. Darlington, like we said, 13th, Texas 17th, Vegas 33rd. I mean, last year was good for him, right? Miami 1st, obviously, Vegas 2nd, Texas 4th, Kansas 8th, but Darlington 23rd in 2023, Nashville 7th. It's just, this is not that last year's Christopher Bell. This is this year's Christopher Bell. Something's happening. Something's going wrong. I don't know that he's going to get in the top 10 in this race. And so, give me Christopher Bell worse than 11.5.
Yeah, I like this as well. And I think it's weird because like he's the only guy who's made the Final Four in both years of the next gen, Rod. So he puts it together and he gets hot at certain times. And I think he's a good example, as we mentioned earlier. You're going to be on some guys for a while, then you're going to be off of them for a while or fading them, then you're going to get back on them. Christopher Bell's that guy. If he comes out and wins this race, I'm not going to be overly shocked because we know he's got speed. We know he's a good driver. But much like Ross Chastain, you just can't count on him to get to the end of these races. And even Tyler Reddick, who I love so much, it's so hard to bet on him, Rod, or play him in fantasy because he can be good. Look at Darlington. He was going to win, and then he finishes in 32nd. And I know I made a counterpoint about Buescher, but that wasn't Buescher's fault. That was, well, there's some argument to be had there. It might have been a little bit of Buescher's fault, but it was Reddick's fault that they both got taken out. Buescher's fault, maybe he lost the lead. But anyways, the point being, Christopher Bell is just a guy you can't trust. Like, you can hardly trust him to get to the end of 400 miles, let alone 600. Now, if the pole odds are probably out at this point, he might be worth taking a look at to get on the pole, Rod, because he's super good at qualifying on the pole in general, and especially on 1.5 miles. Maybe he'll start first. And I think that's probably something we should have mentioned in the DF or in the betting episode. Don't overreact to the little bit of practice we get in the starting positions. 600 miles, Rod. A lot of shit's going to change throughout this race. Track conditions are going to change massively. The guys you circle going into the week, I would not be too quick to move off of anything or change your mind based on a lap or a 10-lap average that somebody throws down, because so many things are going to be so different during the race and in this long race. And to your point, Christopher Bell is just a guy that you can't necessarily trust to get you there. If he gets better than this, okay, good for him. But if I have to pick one way or the other, I'm definitely picking the worst then, because he can't be trusted in general sense. And again, where are the, you think that there's going to be multiple upsets in the top 10. Where are they going to come from? Well, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, right? These are the guys that they're going to come from because they can't get to the end of these races.
Yeah, and I'd rather be on the other side of like cheering him inside the top 10. I don't want to be hoping for him to find his way into the top 10 at the end of this race. I don't want to be watching the scoring ticker and watching him in like 16th place going, oh my God, please pass him. I'd rather be like, okay, you can stay there. Go ahead. Stay in 16th. That'll be fine for me because it'll help my underdog lineups all this well. So, all right. Bree, get out your pen and paper again. I'm going to go over the underdog plays for this slate. Cody started you off with Alex Bowman, better than 13.5. I said Kyle Busch had a fire lit under him, right, by Ricky Stenhouse. Better than 11.5. Cody gave you Chris Buescher, better than 11.5 as well. I gave you Ross Chastain, worse than 12.5. Cody backed that up with Bubba Wallace, better than 14.5. I closed it out with Christopher Bell, worse than 11.5. We have done it, Cody. We have reached the end of the week. We have made our final plays and picks for the entire weekend of racing. We can now go and watch the Truck Series and enjoy this weekend of racing. Now all of our hard work is just reduced to watching these races play out.
It's finally here. Truck Series on the track this evening, Rod. Going to be a really good weekend. I did want to say also, it is Memorial Day weekend. I know that we've both been in the service. This is a weekend. Veterans Day comes around in November, right? And that's the time to celebrate fellow veterans. But this is the holiday to remember those that are no longer with us, the brothers and sisters that we lost over the years and in all of these things. So just wanted to, put the vibes out there and put the thoughts out there that we're remembering all of our heroes on this weekend. Make sure you take some time to do so as well. And then, fire up the grill, drink that beer in their honor and toast to them, because that's what it's all about. And enjoy a fuck ton of racing in the process, because that's also what it's all about. That's what the freedom they fought to give us, Rod. So shout out to all of our heroes out there. We made it, Rod. We're done. Gonna go rest the voice for the weekend, maybe get some tea or something, because it's been a long one. But for all of our work, obviously you can go back, listen to all the shows throughout the week. Got picks for all the races. Indy 500 special episode was on Monday on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. The Monaco picks are on the F1 Gambling Podcast. Make sure you search that out. I think, is that not getting dropped in the NASCAR feed anymore? I don't think.
Oh, so. I have to switch that back up again because we just changed hosts, so I got to do it again.
Yes, but If not, either way, go subscribe to the F1 feed as well to get that. So, and then, yeah, follow me on the X at Husker_Zeeb. 6 racing articles on sportsgamblingpodcast.com this weekend, Rod. So go check all those out. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, all the people who read my articles and look at them. So thank you all very much. Best of luck to you this weekend. I hope you all successfully pull off all 5 races, and maybe we can do the what's I don't know what the multiplication 5 is. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Just win a lot of money in all 5 races. That's what I'm trying to say.
I was told there'd be no math here at all. Listen, I'll echo Cody's sentiments too as well, and make sure. Look, if you have the ability to go watch any sort of Memorial Day ceremony out near you at a veteran cemetery or a national cemetery, I highly suggest you do it. I know I'll be participating in one this weekend on Monday as well. So definitely a way to show tribute. And then, like Cody said, go home, fire up that grill, because I guarantee you, each and every one of those guys that are out there right now only wanted the best for you and only wanted you to be able to celebrate and have a good day today or on Monday, however you celebrate. So do that as well. In remembrance of them, follow me on the Twitter machine at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio, everything I got going on, whether it's here, whether it's Sportsbook Review. Make sure you go check out my Indy 500 article. And then, of course, check out Seth and Elliott on the back road this week, breaking down the Coke 600 for you as well. We'll be back with the recap show. It might be Sunday. It might be Monday. I don't know. With the weekend being the way it is, we'll have to figure out what that is. But we'll see you again next week for more of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Until then, enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time. Let's go racing and let it ride.